Welcome, everyone. Today's live stream is dedicated to tomato management. We'll cover everything from nursery to harvest. If you follow these steps that we are going to tell you, your tomato will perform far better this season. If you're farming for the first time, you aren't going to regret anything tomato farming. So, there are seven key stages. There are seven key stages in tomato farming. And these stages, I will take them one after the other. The first stage is nursery stage. The nursery stage. But meanwhile, I want to ask you, because most of my students, followers, and subscribers are complaining of not having land and all the rest of them. How are they going to go into agriculture when they don't have enough land? Look at me here. I have my what? My two major lands. Yes, this is when I want to grow it big. This is when I want to put it on my veranda. Just pull it in back. Yeah, I did this one myself. Like the dimension, everything at the specification was actually done by. I determined the specification, and this is, like I said, this is for when I want to grow tomato on my balcony. For those of you who have seen videos of tomatoes on my channel and on my Facebook page, Donald the Farmer Reloaded, you would have noticed that this is one of the things I use very often in growing tomatoes. And this particular one too, for my compound, when I want to grow tomato in the compound, not at the balcony. And this is my nursery what? Field. Yeah, my nursery field. This is my nursery. That's the seed tray. So you can actually farm tomato from the comfort in the comfort of your home. So yeah, home gardening alone is enough. So let's talk about nursery stage. Like when I say nursery stage, this is where my nursery stage starts. Yeah, my nursery stage. Yeah, that's here in my nursery tray. So start with a fine soil mix. Start with a fine soil mix of 50% topsoil, 30% compost, and 20% river sand. But I don't use this conventional mix again. I personally have gone totally soilless. So what I use is just sawdust and rice husk with poultry manure. That is what I grow my crops on. But if you cannot afford sawdust and rice husk, the conventional thing, the standard media to use is your 50% topsoil, 30% compost, and 20% river sand. We call it 3:2:1. That's the ratio. Three parts, 3 parts topsoil, 2 parts river sand, or yeah, and 1 part poultry manure. Or you use 50% topsoil, 30% compost, and 20% river sand. That would do. So space your seeds in space your seeds so they are not overcrowded. And with this, the fear of getting them overcrowded would never what exist because the holes are there. You drop one seed per hole. So the whole this point space your seeds so they don't so they are not overcrowded does not exist here in the nursery with what seed trays. So give them enough sunlight, not shade. Give them enough sunlight and not shade. To prevent damping of disease, avoid overwatering and ensure good airflow. That is very important. Give them what? Avoid overwatering and ensure good airflow. This will help you prevent the damping of disease that usually affect tomato seedlings. That is number one, and that is what? The nursery. Hardening off is the second part of the management practices. Let me explain to you what hardening off means in agriculture. When you raise these seedlings in the nursery, they are just like pampered kids. They don't know what the real life experience, the real life condition out there in the field looks like. So, and if you don't pre-expose them to the reality in the field before taking it to the field, they will have problem on the day at the point of transplanting. They will find it difficult to do what? Survive. So what do? Your tomato stays at minimum of 3 weeks in the nursery before they are transplanted. So what you do is this: after the first 2 weeks, you gradually start what? Bringing them out to us under full sun. The first day you may bring them out, leave them for like 2 3 hours in full sun. The second day you increase it by maybe 1 hour more or 1 hour 30 minutes more. On the third day you increase by 1 hour more. That's how you continue until maybe 2 3 days to the time you're going to do what? Planting the field. You can expose them to full sun like all day. You gradually start what? Reducing the rate at which you water them, the rate at which you irrigate them. You start reducing it. What this does is that it will do what? Make these seedlings stronger and harder. So that by the time you transplant them, they will not do what? They will not find the field environment so strange. They will be able to withstand the harshness, the real life situation in the field. That's what hardening off is in a layman's just to explain to you in a layman's understanding. So 5 to 7 days before transplanting, reduce watering and expose the seedling gradually to full sunlight. This helps them adapt to field condition. That's the summary of all I have been talking about on hardening off. So the next stage is transplanting. Transplant at 3 to 4 weeks. I've said this before that the earliest you can transplant your tomato seedlings is 3 weeks. So it's advisable that you transplant your tomato seedlings within between 3 and 4 weeks after raising them in the what? Nursery. At this stage, they must have attained at least five true leaves. Sorry, four true leaves. Because you are transplanting when between four true leaves and what 6 true leaves. When we mean true leaves, that first leaf that opens when the seed germinates is not counted as a true leaf. But after that first one, you start counting from the what? Next leaf. By the time you have at least four, your tomato is due for transplanting. So transplant at 3 to 4 weeks when they have 4 to 6 true leaves. Do it in the evening to reduce shock. They will tell you transplant in the morning or in the evening, but Donald will tell you to always transplant in the evening. The essence of asking you to transplant in the evening is that if you transplant in the morning, let's say 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., your tomato would enjoy it. But it wouldn't take long in the tropics here before the sun comes out. Before you know it, it's 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and the sun is scorching hard already. And what happens? The tomato suffers a little. But if you transplant in the evening, say 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., what happens? Your tomato will have all the night till 8 a.m. the following morning, 9 a.m. the following morning to do what? Adapt, to enjoy, to get acclimatized to the soil and the environment. So your seedlings will survive more. The percentage survival will be more when you transplant in the evening than when you transplant in the morning. But one thing you must not do is to transplant in the afternoon, especially on a day that is not raining. On a rainy day, you can transplant anytime. On a rainy and cloudy day, you can transplant anytime. The essence of choosing your time of transplanting very well is to avoid the seedlings dying in the field. No matter how hard you harden them, in the nursery, you don't need to plant them in the afternoon under the hot sun. That is just one thing you must guide against. So after transplanting, make sure you water immediately, but do not flood. Do not flood. Make sure you water immediately, you irrigate immediately after transplanting. It's a very healthy practice in tomato farming. So the next stage, which is the fourth, is the fertilizer management. Tomato needs nutrients at different stages. Early growth, use NPK 15-15-15 or organic manure. At flowering, increase phosphorus for strong flowers. At fruit set, apply calcium to prevent blossom end rot. Yeah, at fruit set, make sure there is calcium. But I want to tell you, because tomato is a one crop that grows, that matures, let's say, grow from seedling stage to maturity is barely, for most varieties, barely 80-85 days. So, and if you're potting like I pot tomatoes, I try to add my calcium even at the point of transplant, or at most a week after transplanting, so that it will absorb enough calcium even before flowering. So at fruit set, apply calcium to prevent blossom end rot. Blossom end rot, like I said in our previous video, watch that my video. I think that's the most watched video on my channel on YouTube. In case if you've not you are not following me yet on YouTube, just search Dr. Donald Ehatro on YouTube. That video, I told you about the importance of calcium. I said everything about the importance of calcium from A to Z. Calcium is very important. One is that it will make your fruit stronger, it will strengthen the cell wall, and your tomato will store longer, and you can transport it further than one that doesn't have enough calcium. So, what are we saying? Calcium is very essential, and you must add calcium at the right time. Now, one of the greatest enemies of tomato farmers, not only tomato farmers, vegetable farmers in the tropics, is the disease known as blossom end rot. I also explained blossom end rot very, very well on that video. If you've not watched that video after this live stream, please do well and watch it. It's a 5 minutes, 40 seconds, 48 seconds video where I explain everything you need to know about tomato fruits and how to preserve your tomato right from planting. So do well and watch that video. You would not regret it. So during fruit filling, increase potassium for firm fruits. Potassium helps to make the oil. Not It's only calcium that makes your fruit firm. Potassium too. Potassium too helps to do what? Make your fruits firm. Don't apply fertilizer too close to the stem. Always maintain spacing. Of course, this is a general advice, general guide in farming. Never ever you apply any fertilizer too close to the stem of any crop. If not, it will burn the crop, it will burn the plant. So having said that, let's look at the fifth management practice. Please, I want to be getting your comments in the comment section. If you have any question, just drop in the comment section. I will respond to you as soon as possible. So let's look at the fifth management practice, which is pruning and staking. Pruning and staking, they are very, very essential in tomato farming. Remove remove the lower leaves touching the soil. This is important. You remove the lower leaves touching the soil here to avoid disease infestation. So pruning helps the plant focus energy on the fruits. Stake with bamboo ropes or single poles to keep fruits off the ground. When you keep the fruits off the ground, you're, of course, naturally, you're preventing it from getting contaminated or infected. And by the time you prune the lower branches, the lower leaves, the energy the tomato would have spent on the lower leaves will be channeled to the fruits. It's just very simple. So pruning and staking helps your what tomato perform optimally well. The next stage is the sixth, which is pest and disease control. Pest and disease control is very, very important. You know, tomato is so much relished by pests. So many pests love tomatoes and even on other vegetables. In fact, at every stage of the life of the tomato, pests and diseases love tomatoes so much. Perhaps the same way I love tomato. I love tomato so much, and that is why I post tomato everywhere I go. So that's the same way pest and disease attack tomato at every given what stage of the growth, even at in storage. Yeah, the fruits too are attacked by what pest and diseases. So watch out for early blight, late blight, white flies, and nematodes. Prevention is always better than cure. Avoid wetting the leaves when watering. Tomato doesn't like water touching the leaves. This is one secret. In fact, if there's no reason why tomato doesn't do well in southeastern Nigeria before now, it is because of the high rainfall. Tomato doesn't like water touching the leaves. If you can reduce the rate at which water touches the leaf, the water splash on the leaf when irrigating, please, if you can avoid that, try to do what? Avoid it very, very well. If you can prevent that, your tomato business, your tomato farming has succeeded by 60%. That's the honest truth. One truth you need to know. So I repeat all I want to say. I said avoid watering the leaves when watering the leaves when watering. Don't allow water to touch the leaves. Much as possible, prevent water from splashing on the leaves and on the flowers too. Let me mention that. And on the flowers too. So use crop rotation to reduce diseases. Now, crop rotation, that's for those of you who are going to plant in the field. Like I'm going to plant tomato in the field this year. But for those of you that will be using potting bags and containers, like me as well, what do you do? One of the things I do is that I try to treat my media from time to time. I don't use much things to treat my media other than what the neem, because I try to farm organic all the time. I try to maintain organic agriculture as much as possible. So to treat my, in fact, the media I've been using, I used this last year. I'm still using it this year, and that was the same media I used two planting seasons ago. So what I do is from time to time I try to get neem oil and maybe neem leaf, use it and incorporate it to the disease. It helps you to control some of the pests and diseases. So that's just what I do basically. I don't do much for the ones that I pot. And in the field, what I do is I mulch with neem too. And I also spray neem extract. I wash my neem the way I wash my bitter leaf. Extract the neem, the water, and the what spray. That is what I use basically in my pest control for my pest control. So, for those of you who will be farming the field, use crop rotation. That will help you reduce what soil diseases. So, the last but not the least of the stages is the harvesting and post-harvest care. This is a very critical what stage. Yeah, this is another critical stage. The harvesting and the post-harvest care. This is important. It's as important as stage A, as stage one, two, three, four, and five and six. Stage seven, which is harvesting and post-harvest what care. Yesterday, during one of my live lectures in the classroom with my students, I told them the importance of what harvest and post-harvest practices. And in Nigeria, you will notice that about 40% of the losses farmers run into in agriculture occur during the harvest and post-harvest process. More than 40% of the losses, the farmers incur them in the world during the harvest and post-harvest. During harvest and post-harvest, not even in the field. It may surprise you. Go to the open market, go to the rural market, you see dumps of rotten tomatoes everywhere. It's not supposed to be. Use the appropriate method of harvesting, harvest at the right time. Yeah, there are different stages of harvesting. I once posted a picture on I think on Facebook. Yeah, on Facebook. That was last year when I harvested, and I demonstrated the various stages of what harvest. There's what we call physiological maturity in crops. All you need in tomato farming is to do what? Ensure target harvesting at what we call physiological maturity. Physiological maturity is that stage of maturity where the crop is actually fully 100% mature, but it is yet to do what? Change color. At that stage, if you harvest, the plant will still do what? The crop will still do what? The fruit will still complete its ripening. We have what we call climateric and non-climateric fruits. So tomato is one of those fruits that has the ability to do what? Complete its ripening when you harvest at what? Physiological maturity. It may still be green, but maybe between a bit yellowish green, and you harvest. Do proper packaging and do what? Don't allow your tomato to overripe in the field before you harvest and put in a local basket, compress it and pack another basket on top of it. That's a wrong practice. Yes, it's a very wrong practice. If you harvest at the right time, your tomato can stay more than 3 weeks before what? Yeah, some tomato varieties have more than 3 weeks of shelf life, if not up to 4 weeks. And also, when you use the cool transport, it can last what? Longer. So let's look at what I have on my in my material. I said harvest at the breaker or turning stage in transporting. Handle fruits gently to avoid bruising. Store in a cool place. Pick every 2 to 3 days. Yeah, pick every 2 to 3 days. 2 to 3 days. So, do I have any question? Can we take some questions? If you have any question, please just do well to drop your. For those of you on Facebook, I will respond to your questions immediately after the live stream. But for those of you on YouTube, I'll be taking your questions on the immediately. Yeah, questions. It's We are closing now. It's time for questions and answer. We just have about 15 to 10 to 15 minutes for that. So let's move into questions and answers session. Drop your questions in the chat, and I will be what? Waiting to respond to you. So after that, while I expect your questions, while I look for to your questions, our next live stream would be planting mistakes. Planting mistakes. That's the next thing we'll be looking at. Planting mistakes. That'll be the next thing. That's the next thing we are going to look at in our next live stream. Yeah, in our next live stream, we are going to be looking at planting mistakes. So while I wait your questions, and let's also let's continue talking about farming this farming season, especially in the tropical climate. Try and work on your soil. Try and make sure that start preparing your soil. But then do not forget that climate change is real. Do not forget that climate change is real. So while you work, for those of you living in Nigeria, the NIMET has released their forecast for the year. Do not take that forecast for what? For granted. Do not take that forecast for granted. The rainfall pattern this year is not going to follow the usual pattern. Study the rainfall pattern. If you're the type that would be planting in the open field, know what you are doing. Plant short duration crops that will mature in few months, so that by the time you harvest the first one and we go into another dry spell, you can rest. Once the rain starts again, you plant another crop. So any crop that you're going to plant that will stay 6, 7, 8 months in the field, you need to be very careful when about when to plant, so that you don't end up begging for irrigation. But then, if you can afford irrigation, go ahead and plant. This is almost end of February, so the farming season is supposed to start right away. But please, do not go to the field without looking at the weather forecast released by the Nigeria Meteorological Agency if you are in Nigeria. So I think we while we look forward to your questions, we'll call it a wrap here. Thank you for joining us. It's been 32 minutes well spent on this live stream. If you've if you're yet to subscribe to our channel, if you're yet to follow us, please do not forget, hit the subscribe button. If you're seeing me for the first time, if you're seeing our broadcast for the first time, please do not forget to subscribe. Yeah, search for us, share our videos to get others um, on board, so that they can join us, come on board and learn how to farm and farm in the most perfect of ways. Don't forget, recommend Dr. Donald Ihatru on YouTube. Yes,